It's very hard to know where to start, considering we had a very similar debate last week. It is true what the Taoiseach says, that in the international community, Ireland is viewed as being one of the most critical voices of Israeli aggression. But I suppose when you live in Ireland, you can only influence what you can in terms of the government's response. And Ireland may be going further than anyone else, but that's not a very high bar, considering the, moral, political collapse of any sort of decency that we would have perhaps previously expected from celebrated institutions and political entities such as the EU, the US and the UK. We have to constantly remind ourselves of this moral collapse, especially as it comes so soon after the uniformity of response to the Russian aggression in Ukraine. And this is not about, it's only speaking about our enemies, it's also speaking about our supposed friends. I would call on any of us who have any influence with anybody who is cheerleading this to speak those uncomfortable words, not just within Europe, but also in the United States and indeed in the United Kingdom. I think what the Taoiseach has said in reference to the underfunding is fair enough. I think that is commendable, but at the same time, it shouldn't really be questioned. What we are facing now, this is unprecedented, what we are facing, what we are witnessing, and it is not going to stop. What is being cheerled, the bloodthirsty nature of the pronouncements from Israeli politicians really makes you wonder where it will end and how it will end. And they have no encouragement from anybody to end because they've had no encouragement from anybody for over 50 years to change its tack. They have absolute support from many countries within the European Union. They have absolute support in the UK and they have absolute support, as we know, in the US. I speak about uncomfortable conversations because I think all bets are off on the international diplomacy scene here when it comes to this. People call it a conflict. Conflict, gives the impression of two equals going at it. Let's call it what it is. It's a genocide. It's an absolute annihilation of a people. We can only assume that the ambition here is to settle the land and to end Gaza as a residential, if you like, territory for the Palestinian people that they have been, smothering since 2005. But I'll make this point again, and I made it last week. Us in the Irish Labour Party have our responsibility to speak truth to power in the British Labour Party. And I'll be quite frank, I've said it last week, I said it to media today, and I repeat it here, that Keir Starmer would not be welcome at any Labour Party event in Ireland, considering the cowardice that he has shown in the face of evil and the cowardice he has shown in the face of genocide. He has not called for a ceasefire. His words were weak, and maybe he's reflecting on an issue of anti-Semitism within the British Labour Party, but that's not excuse enough. It's not excuse enough for somebody who's purporting to be the leader of the United Kingdom, to be the potential Prime Minister. We expect better, and he is wrong, and he has to be called out for that. I expect, for those members of Fine Gael within the European People's Party to call out people like Ursula von der Leyen. I see a report from Naomi O'Leary of the Irish Times last week saying that Ursula von der Leyen and Roberta Metsola flew to Israel to show solidarity right after Defence Minister Gallant ordered a complete siege on Gaza, including, and I quote, no electricity, no food, no fuel. This quote was read out by the ICJ as plausible evidence of incitement to genocide. No electricity, no food, no fuel. That's the Defence Minister. How is a child supposed to survive with no electricity, no food, no fuel? They are engineering a famine. And we know that of the 25,000 people who have been murdered, half of them are children, and they're not going to stop. And when it comes to those, influence that we may have in the States, I think, Minister, you're going to have to get your head around how uncomfortable it is for Irish people to witness Irish government ministers going to the US, going to the White House, and engaging in that sort of diplomacy in a kind of a light-hearted manner now with the administration who are funding this. Now, I know it's easy from the opposition to say you shouldn't go. It is easy. But I think you're going to have to give some commentary around that. You're going to have to give some indication of what you're going to say, what your government's going to say. If you were not to go, you would be congratulated from the Labour Party, and we would support you in that. I know this is a very long and valued relationship that we have with the United States. But I know now that if Joe Biden wants to come here next week, that we wouldn't be sitting in these seats. We just wouldn't be able to countenance welcoming Joe Biden with all his Irish-American background into this chamber, considering what he is funding, what his administration are weaponising, the genocide that he is overseeing. We just wouldn't be able to do it. And I think others in this Dáil, political parties who intend to attend the White House reception, need to reflect on their positions as well. And on that, I would applaud the statement by Colm Eastwood of the SDLP, who said he won't be there. I think that is the right approach. So all of these things are incredibly emotional and incredibly difficult. But I repeat this, Minister, and it's not just down to you, as I said, it's actually down to all of us. It's not just down to the government, it's actually down to civil society, trade unions, the Irish people, to make a determination of what we feel is the ongoing relationship with Israel and how we can stop it, how we can halt what they're doing. Because this may come to an end. There may be a resolution. There may be a ceasefire. There may be diplomacy. But this is going to keep going because we will return to this until they are completely isolated as the rogue nation that we now believe that they are. Many of us have felt that they have been in that category for quite a long time. And as I said here last week, until there is a complete, total diplomatic, economic, artistic and sporting boycott of everything Israeli, they're not going to stop. Not because I want the destruction of the state of Israel, because I don't, and the Labour Party doesn't. Others may, we don't. I think we have to hold fast to the idea of the two-state solution, which of course has been completely ruled out by Netanyahu. But at the same time, Minister, I think it is a call for all of us to do what we can. And remember, when it came to the South African boycott, when I was a child, it was the women of Dunstores who made that initial step to say they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't handle the fruit from an apartheid nation. So that is the responsibility on all of us. But all of us have to call out what we see as right or as wrong, or as evil or as genocide. We're all trying to live in communities. We're all trying to bring up children. We all find ourselves turning off the television in case some of our children see the scenes and are wondering why there are bloody children, wondering where their parents are on the screen. And that's the world in which we are now raising children. And they don't understand how it could possibly happen. So you shield your own children hundreds of miles away from where this is happening, from the horror. But some, unfortunately, people can't shield their children from it. And as was said quite eloquently last week, I can't remember the deputy who said it. It may have been Mary Lou MacDonald. But that, you have Israeli politicians and US politicians signing missiles. And you have Palestinian mothers writing their children's names in their arms in case they're found dead and can be identified. And that's the scale of the depravity and the genocide and the evil that we are witnessing. So we have to support the South African case, but we have to do more than that. We have to end our relationship with this country, not because we want the country to end, because we want their barbarism to end. We want their evil to end. We want their apartheid to end. We want their murder to end.
Thank you, Deputy.